Okay, today we're going to be learning about something which is very fundamental, which is it better to perform a mitzvah that is worse or that isn't as important right now, which would potentially or very well likely prevent the person from performing a greater mitzvah later or a better mitzvah? That's what we're going to discuss, and we're going to be doing a deep dive on this concept based on the topics that we're actually learning about over here. So we're going to analyze this and review the long bear halacha that we already started, and then we're going to take it from there. So the bear halacha over here in our sif, Reish Mem Tes Beis, begins by discussing, quoting a Magen Avram. Let's just backtrack what this bear halacha is going on. The Ramah says that if there's a meal that is on Erev Shabbos, which is a set time, for example, a meal or a pidyon ben, so you could do that. You're allowed to eat at that meal. Now, it's very easy to just move on and say, oh yeah, it's a time-sensitive meal for sure, 100%, it's fine. But let's just ask ourselves a question. What is more important? A Shabbos Suda, the Shabbos meal, or a meal at a bris, or a pidyon ben? Let's ask ourselves another question, which very few are actually aware of the status. What is the status of a meal at a bris or a pidyon ben? What is the halachic status?
Sudas mitzvah?
It's Sudas mitzvah. Is it a full-fledged obligation? What is the source of this? So we have to, there's certainly what to chew on over here and what to discuss. So that's what we're going to work our way through over here. So the Be'er Halacha begins by saying, I am Magen Avram Shehevi b'Shem Lavush. Look at the Magen Avram in the name of the Lavush, Rabbi Mordechai Yafa. Tim efsher lakayim shtehen mutov. Vim lav tidoche Suda Shabbos. If it's possible to fulfill both of them, great. If not, push off the Shabbos meal. Meaning to say, you're not able to fulfill it at all at night. Mipnei, because, and this goes to the next page, achilas kasa. Because of overeating, that we'll speak this out outside momentarily, and even so, you don't need to worry about this. Since you're dealing with right now a suda, which is a mitzvah, a meal, which is a mitzvah, and the next day you should fulfill all three meals. Like we learned in Siman Reish Ayin Daled. And this is how the Prima Godim explains the intention of the Lavush, which is also quoted by the Magen Avram. In other words, what this is saying is a tremendous chiddush. This is a tremendous insight which could easily be overlooked. According to the Lavush, if a person is able to stomach, so to say, literally, if he could handle having a meal at a bris, and then additionally he's going to have an appetite and be able to eat his Shabbos meal properly, he's going to have the Suda at the bris and the Suda on Shabbos, great. But if he can't, according to the Lavush, just eat at the bris as much as you want. Don't worry about the Shabbos meal that you're not going to be able to have. Don't worry about it.
Right now, this is the mitzvah at hand.
Yeah, right now, this is the mitzvah. Don't worry about it. I know you're not going to be able to eat at all because it's going to be considered overeating, achilas gasa. You're not going to have any appetite whatsoever. You're going to not be hungry at all. And even if you do eat, it's not going to be considered halachically eating. Don't worry. Why? Because right now, right now, you're being involved with the meal, which is a mitzvah, aka the meal at the bris of the pidyon ben. And then he says, Oh, so wait a second. We have to have 3 meals on Shabbos. Have the 3 meals tomorrow, Shabbos day, after you sleep at night, and you'll be hungry again the next day. This is a tremendous chiddush of the Lavush over here. I mean, his first point is already incredibly insightful
We're
because
talking
he's
about
saying over here that don't worry about the Shabbos meal. But then after he adds in this idea of, oh, by the way, you could have all 3 meals the next day, which isn't halachically preferable. Only if a person was in that situation should he do it. David, question?
yeah, we're talking about the Sudas mitzvah first thing in the morning.
We're talking about a bris or a pidyon haben on Erev Shabbos on Friday, and that the fella's not going to have an appetite for Shabbos. If it's a short Shabbos and it starts early, 4:30, and you call pidyon haben for 12 o'clock, whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Comes along the commentary of the Oz V'Hadim Mishnah Berurah and beautifully explains this Ber Halacha, this Magen Avraham Neslavash. If you're able to be Makayim Shtayim, aka you're able to have the bris and the pidyon haben and the Suda of Shabbos. But again, it's either you're able to have the bris slash pidyon haben and the Shabbos meal. That's great. You could do that. If you look at the footnote over here, he says, let's say, for example, like most times, the bris is in the morning. This is what David was bothered by. And you're able to eat the Shabbos meal at night with an appetite. Or you're not going to at least eat it when you're totally stuffed. That's obvious that you could do that over there. V'im lav, says the Ber Halacha, if you're not able to do that, you can't have the Suda of the bris in the morning. For some reason, the bris has to be near Shabbos. Or the pidyon haben. So now you're not going to be able to have an appetite for your meal on Shabbos after you ate at the bris or the pidyon haben. So according to the Lavush, and we're going to be delving into this over here, much more dissecting this idea. Push off the meal on Shabbos, and don't push off the meal for the bris.
And what about you make kiddush for someone else? What would happen? How would it work?
What do you mean you make kiddush for someone else?
That's totally different.
Let's say the Rebbitzin didn't eat at the bris, and she wants to eat the Shabbos Suda at
She
night.
should preferably make her own kiddush, and if she can't, then we already learned in Reish Ayin Aleph, it would technically be permissible for you to do so. But since most women nowadays are literate, they should definitely do that themselves, coupled with the fact that they have an equal obligation as men.
So
Remember, this isn't Havdalah.
yeah, and so you just make a all right.
Comes along the Ber Halacha and says, but if not, if you can't do both, according to Lavush, push it off. Because you're going to be satiated from that meal. Tremendous chiddush of the Lavush. And the Ber Halacha continues quoting Lavush and says, by the way, it's achilas kasa. But you don't need to worry about it. Don't worry about it. You could eat before Shabbos. Remember, this is for a Sudas mitzvah. The meal itself is a mitzvah. It's for a bris or pidyon haben. Because right now you're involved with the Suda of a mitzvah. And therefore, this mitzvah isn't going to get pushed off because of the mitzvah of the Suda of Shabbos.
No, the Suda of Shabbos is.
Well, and wait, how? And also, we're not talking about the Baal Simcha. How important is it for someone to be?
We're going to discuss that. Hold on. And then we're going to discuss that before we conclude this sif.
Whose mitzvah is it?
We're gonna discuss that before we conclude this sif. And then the Ber Halacha says, because right now you're involved with the Sudas mitzvah. Comes along the Oz V'Hadim Mishnah Berurah explaining this Ber Halacha and says, wait a second. This mitzvah, this meal isn't going to get pushed off because of the mitzvah of the Suda of Shabbos. You go with this mitzvah's in front of you right now, you have to do it. And then they add in, the Eina Mizbatel al Yedezid Lagamri Misuda Shabbos. By the way, you don't need to worry that right now you're completely going to nullify and cancel your meal on Shabbos. Because guess what? You could have it tomorrow. Now, this is a controversial concept, according to the Lavush, if you ask me, from a halachic perspective. Having 3 sudas during the day on Shabbos is not preferable. So we're coming along and saying, do this on purpose. It's insightful. It's insightful. Question.
No, I guess we're also going to discuss the Rebbe said that,
Yeah.
what's the chiyuv of a sudas mitzvah of Mila versus.
Hold on. Everyone's asking excellent questions, and the reason is because there's a lot of cryptic ideas over here, and we're going to be getting over it. This is the opinion of the Lavush. Sit on it. Let your mind absorb it. And perhaps let your mind forget it. Because this is not going to be so simple as we're going to see. By the way, they add over here in the footnotes. Oh no, actually, that's in the previous part. Let's continue in this beautiful and fundamental Berlach. I'm going to zoom it in just so it'll be easier for everyone to read and follow along. And actually, I was thinking about this in my head. We're going to do a double split screen when we're going to go through this Berlach right now. What we're going to do is, sometimes I usually do this when it comes to typing notes, but I think that this is going to be a fabulous idea for this Be'er Halacha. What we're going to do is we're going to have one screen over here on the bottom, which is going to be the actual Be'er Halacha, and then the top screen over here is going to be the Oz V'Hadar Mishnah Brura and their commentary. So we're going to be working with both right next to each other. I think that this is going to be the main move over here to learn this Be'er Halacha properly. Umikol makom. We're going to pick it up from right here. Umikol makom, nevertheless, says the Be'er Halacha, Ledina, regarding the actual halacha, yesh la'ayin bezetuva. You have to look into this a lot halachically, if this is okay. Dehaloi suda Shabbos balayla hichoivo mitzad hadin. The obligation of having the meal on Shabbos night is a full-fledged obligation from the letter of the law. Those of V'Hadar Mishnah Brura adds, you have to look into this a lot. If it's permissible to eat in a way that now you're not going to be able to eat afterwards your Shabbos meal at night. Because your meal at night is a full-fledged obligation. Masha'inkin, continuing the Be'er Halacha. Conversely, besudas bris milu pidyon haben eine ela mitzvah ba'alma v'loi chiyuv klal. This is a tremendous line of the Be'er Halacha, tremendous insight. Masha'inkin, conversely, the meal when it comes to the meal at a bris or a pidyon haben is only a mere mitzvah, and it's not an obligation at all. The actual meal at a bris and a pidyon haben is technically speaking not obligatory. It's a mitzvah, but it's not a full-fledged obligation. And if that's so, says the Be'er Halacha, also Yizbata Lagabni Misudas Lailo. If you estimate that by you eating right now, you're gonna at the bris of the pidyon haben, you're gonna completely nullify yourself from being able to have the meal Shabbos night, you should refrain from eating at the bris and the pidyon haben. First of all, this is very insightful because it's a full-fledged argument and taking out the lavush over here and saying, no, 100% you shouldn't eat a lot. Secondly, it's insightful because just to focus and take a step back, I mean, you have to learn Siman Reish Samachay in your day by Hilchos Mila over there and Pidyon Haben Siman Shin, of course. But according to what the Be'er Halacha over here is saying in a few concise words, the suda, the actual meal at a bris and the Pidyon Haben is not obligatory. You don't even have to do it. It's a mere mitzvah. That itself is incredibly insightful. And then thirdly, this idea of even though a mitzvah is in front of you right now, you have to tweak the way you do it. You have to harness it, direct it in the right way, because you have to think in the long run and if bigger mitzvahs are going to come. So this is a tremendous amount of insight in this Ber Halacha, which how many people actually slow down, stop, and think and talk about this idea? Most people probably don't even look at this Ber Halacha. I mean, most people don't look at the Ber Halachas in general. Even people who do, they probably just run through it fast. Just stop right now. The world and everything is revolving, everything's moving. Just think about this. Stop and think. How amazing are these concepts? People are spending thousands and thousands of dollars on the meals at the bris. That's not okay. Nice idea. Better to do that than go for 5 vacations in the Poconos, Hawaii, Shaila going to Hawaii, all over the place, Italy, wherever it is that people want to go. But Dhikr is tight at mitzvahs. It's just the biggest mitzvah. There are plenty of people dying of starvation in the world. All right, something to think about over there. Anyways, the idea is that we see that according to the Ber Halacha, you have to look into this. Because the obligation of the Sudan Shabbos is more important. Almost along the Yozvah, the Mishnah Berurah. In a footnote, and says, Lavush says that the Suda at night is an obligation, Minatorah, Mikra Adin, from the letter of the law. It's Psukim, it's a Gemara in Shabbos, Kuf Yedzayin, and still, he says, if you're able to do both, great. If not, don't worry about the Shabbos meal. The Pri Megadim says, I don't understand. How could a Suda, which is Dirabanan at best, this meal that we're having at the Pidyon Aben and the Bris is rabbinic at best, how could that push off a Suda that's Deoraisa on Shabbos? Pri Megadim answers that since the time didn't reach yet for this Suda of Shabbos, for this mitzvah Deoraisa, this mitzvah from the Torah, therefore, right now you could do the Dirabanan according to how the Pri Megadim understands Lavush, even though albeit that now you're going to be unable to perform the Suda, the meal at Shabbos night.
Right? So it's not one of the rice, it's not one of the.
Hold on. We're not up to there yet. That's his first answer. That answer in and of itself explains Lavush. Because Lamaisa, granted you're right, you have a greater mitzvah, but that's on deck. That's in the future. But right now, take it what's in front of you. What is in front of you is a mitzvah. Okay? It might not be a full obligation, but it's close to a rabbinic mitzvah. Therefore, you got to do it. Another explanation the Pri Megadim explains is, what are you talking about? The Sudan Shabbos, the meals that we have on Shabbos, that's not from the Torah. It's not Deoraisa, it's a the Psukim. It's a Smach Ba'alma. No. It's based on Psukim. So we see from over here that a mitzvah which is rabbinic, a mitzvah derabanan, could be doichan asmachta. Rabbinic mitzvah could push off a greater mitzvah if it's not full-fledged from the Torah. It's just based on psukim. At the end, he concludes that the reason of Lavush, who says that you should eat at the bris of the Pidyon Aben, is because it's possible for you to fulfill the 3 meals of Shabbos in the day. And it's not like we're saying, take the mitzvah of Shabbos and the Suda, take it, throw it out. We're not throwing out the mitzvah. We're just saying, take the mitzvah from here and bring it to there. Now, even though the there isn't as preferable, but the mitzvah still exists. It's not like over zmano batal korbano. You still have the mitzvah. So the Lavush is really using that as leverage, so a leeway. But the Ber Halacha says, no. You have to eat your Suda on Shabbos. Your Shabbos meal comes at night. That's when it's supposed to be. Reish Ayin Dalet, it gets discussed. You can't just now have 3 meals during the day for no reason. You have to have an oinus. Look at the Sharat Sion and Reish Ayin Dalet Sivkot and Ches. There has to be an extenuating circumstance, legitimate situation. Like the Chemed Moshe says, the Pri Megadim says. Not like what the Magen Avram says. That if you have a little bit of an oinus, if you have a little bit of an extenuating circumstance, you're able to perform the 3 meals during the day. No. You have to have a full-fledged extenuating circumstance, legitimate reason. Perhaps it could be that's what the Magen Avram allows over here to eat the Suda of the bris and to push off the meal on Shabbos, even though it's called an Oinik Sas, which means maybe this is an extenuating circumstance. Granted, it's not a large extenuating circumstance, but it's minor. Maybe it would work. So there's certainly what to chew on over here with these ideas. Just going to open up the next file for this Halacha. There we go. The Oz V'Hadar page. This is actually the main page of the meat and potatoes of this Halacha. Now we're going to be able to go right in. Now we don't need to open up pages left and right. We got everything that we need right here. And I think there's no, there are, okay, yeah, I know that. I know a footnote's there. Yeah, that's going to be very enjoyable. I hope that we can finish at least this part of the Be'er Halacha up until Kosev Darchim Moshe. We're going to have to move. Continuing in the Be'er Halacha. So, continuing those V'Hadar, rather. The meal that we have at a bris or a pidyon haben, that's not a chiyuv me'ikar hadin. That's not a full-fledged obligation. It's a mere mitzvah. And therefore, if a person estimates that by him eating at the meal, by the bris or the pidyon haben before Shabbos, he's going to be satiated, and then when he's going to eat later on, it's going to be a achilas gaso. It's like he's stuffing he's stuffing himself because he's already totally full. You should refrain from eating at the bris. Before we go into the next part of the Be'er Halacha, let's take a look over here at some of the footnotes. It's explained in your day in Hilchas Milan Siman Reish Samachay. Noihogin la'asois suda biyoim hamila. What does noihogin mean?
I think it's a custom.
Customary. The meal at the bris, that's an obligation. It's a custom. You don't have to have it. It's a cherry on the cake. It's a minhag. What does it say in Hilchos Pidyon Haben? I made a mistake. It's Siman Shin Hey. Haven't learned it in a few years. It says in Siman Shin Hey, Nohagu. It's a custom to make a meal on by Pidyon Haben. It's minhag. Custom. So we see minhag isn't as important as something that's an obligation, aka the Suda on Shabbos. And then over here they go into something fascinating. Probably one of the most well-known tshuvas of the Radbaz, which the Mishnah Berurah made famous in Hilchos Shmona Esrei, by quoting it, I think it's Siman Sadi. In the Shilos and Tshuvas Radbaz, in the Chelik Dalet Siman Yud Gimel, he discusses the following Shiloh. Someone was chavush b'beisa asurim. Let's say someone was incarcerated in prison. All right. They only let you go out one day, get out of jail free. They put the tracker on you and everything. They had guards by you. They made sure you weren't going to run away. I don't know if they found those people, those 10 people that escaped, if they found the last 2 or something. Okay. Anyways, which day should you get out? Purim? People would say Yom Kippur. No, we already discussed. Yom Kippur is only like Purim. Yom Kippurim. You get out Purim, special day of davening, pursuing Nisa, publicizing the miracle. It has chashivus on everything. It has more importance than any other day when it comes to davening. Or maybe no. Ein ma'avir ala mitzvahs. You don't pass over a mitzvah the first day they let you get out of jail. That's when you go out of jail to daven with the minyan. So the Radbaz quoted a Rav over there who said, yeah, go out on Purim. It's a great day. Comes the Radbaz and says, no. Radbaz says, you don't understand the reward for mitzvahs. As we discussed in the Pirkei Avos. You have to be careful with the mitzvah kala kebichamuro. Be careful with the light mitzvah like a heavy, because you don't know the reward of mitzvahs. In the second parak we discussed. Wrapping up the first parak over here. Pirkei Avos. Good stuff, good material. You got to get out immediately. First chance you get. It's very interesting because he doesn't say over here, maybe they might not let you out. He says, no, you don't understand the reward. What you think is a big mitzvah, that might not even matter. How do people view changing diapers? Changing a diaper that is totally stinky could be much bigger than sitting here right now and learning Torah Kedosha. We're learning, other people are looking at us. Oh, wow, the guy looks like they're learning serious. Oh, we're going to give him respect now. Whatever. When you change a diaper, you're getting respect for that. When you're cleaning up toys at the end of the day and sweeping a floor, you're getting respect for that. We don't understand the reward for mitzvahs. One simple shachris, what it could do. He doesn't say that might not. And then he says, "V'chein perish Mishnah Berurah." That's what the Mishnah Berurah writes in Hilchos Shmona Esrei in Siman Sadi Sivkot and Kafches. So according to this Radbaz over here as well, seemingly you should eat at the bris, even though that the meal for Shabbos is better and more of an obligation, because we don't know the reward for mitzvahs. So you don't want to pass over a mitzvah. Whatever comes to you first, you should do. Comes along the Shilas and Shuvas Rav Poalim. If I'm not mistaken, is the Ben Ish Chai in Chelik Beis Simin on Dalit. No. That's not what the Radbaz meant. The Radbaz is only discussing in a situation where it's unclear which one is more important than the other. We don't know. Which one is more important than the other? Logically, we would say that the later one is better. Oh, so on that, the Radbaz says we don't know the reward for mitzvahs. Conversely, Mashiyenkein, if we know with complete clarity that the later mitzvah is more of an obligation, is a yoser chov, is better, for sure, wait for the later one. For example, someone has 1 cup of yayin, 1 cup of wine. Should I have it at Shalosh Shudas? After all, we learned in Hilchos Shalosh Shudas, what is it? It's in Reish Adiyal. We learned over there that it's tov, it's good to have yayin during Shalosh Shudas. We don't make kiddush, but good to have during Shalosh Shudas. Explicit. Rambam talks about it also. So now he's thinking, he's scratching his head. Wait a second. Scratching his head was, of course, washing his hands after, because you scratch your head, Simon Dalad, you have to wash your hands in after. So, or at least rub them on the table or something. So he's thinking, wait a second, what should I do over here? Should I drink it right now? Because the Arizal talks about the importance of having the wine during Shalosh Shudas, or save it for benching after? For sure, says the Rab Poalim, the Radbaz would agree that it's better to save it for benching. Benching is way more important. And we know that for a fact than drinking it during Shalosh Shudas. Accordingly, so too over here. When we have our Suda Shabbos, when we eat Shabbos night, we know that that's a full-fledged obligation. Unlike the bris, which isn't a full-fledged obligation, it's a mere mitzvah like we learned. For sure, even the Radbaz would agree not to eat at the bris, or at least not to eat too much, and to wait to make sure that you're going to have room for your Shabbos meal, and you're going to be able to fulfill it later on. Very important point from the Oz V'Hadar Mishnah Berurah over here, explaining that the Radbaz doesn't apply over here. Even the Radbaz would agree, who typically says, go for what you could right now. In this case, he would agree, because we know for sure the situation. And therefore, make sure not to have too much. The Be'er Halacha continues. Everyone's good so far? Does anyone want to talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
Go ahead, Devin.
Yeah, what? You go first.
I'm good.
You're good? Okay.
Oh, so
Yeah.
based on what we just said, the Rabaz is saying if you know what the reward is,
Yeah.
if you know that one mitzvah is greater than the other mitzvah, then for sure grab, then wait.
Right.
I'm saying that. But how could you say that if we're saying we know that the idea of Persume Nisa, right, and the idea of, especially that minion is more important than a regular minion, And Raj says go for the first minyan. Again, I understand if he said that the reason is because you don't know if the government's going to pull the rug out from under you. I
He
understand
didn't
that, but
say
he's not
that. He
saying
didn't
it.
say that. He didn't say that.
And here, the case specifically, the mitzvah is so much greater than a regular minyan.
I was thinking that in the back of my head, and I was afraid that that was going to be asked. But I think the answer is that when it comes to davening, so who says? It really matters what's going on in the heart. Ezu avodah she believe the beginning of Tainus. Matters what's going on in the heart. And when it comes to Hashem, our tefillas could always be accepted. Seems
So
like he
they
wasn't
did.
able to daven in jail. Unlike over here, we know for sure the difference of the meals. Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking that though. Says the Ber Allah in the next step and says when we call Makim, Ladina yesh la'ayin bazetuva. Whether we hold this way, you have to look into this. Top line over here. Where was it? Medina le'ishayin bazetuva. You have to look into this halachically. Sorry, we just saw that one. Umeshulchan aruch ein shum raya. And from the Shulchan Aruch over here, you can't bring a proof. Klal at all. That which the Ramah said, you could, a meal which has a set time on Erev Shabbos, you're allowed to eat. Even a meal that you're not accustomed to during the week, you can't bring a proof from over here that would permit you, even in the situation where you're going to come to that eating on Shabbos night. The Shulchan Aruch lo hitir rak im al yedei zeh lo yitiach chilas b'chai l'tyavam. The Shulchan Aruch only said you could eat a suda, a meal that its time is on Erev Shabbos. We're talking about sensitive. That's only talking about if now, when you're going to eat, you're not going to have the same amount of appetite that you would have had you not eaten. Meaning, in other words, you're not going to be able to fulfill the mitzvah of the Suda of Shabbos in a hidden manner, in a preferable way, with the appetite. You're not going to be able to have the cherry. But you're not going to completely nullify yourself from the mitzvah. You're still going to be eating over here. You're going to be able to fulfill the mitzvah of the Suda on Shabbos. That's what the Shulchan Aruch meant when he said you could eat. The Gam, and furthermore, in parentheses, im tam iser kviya suda mishum de mazalzel b'Shabbos, if the whole reasoning for the prohibition of establishing a meal that you're not used to during the week, a very lavish meal Erev Shabbos, because because you're going to be belittling Shabbos, because you're equating the Suda of the Erev Shabbos to Shabbos itself. If that's the concern over here, guess what? Bazeh, in this situation, when you're eating l'shem mitzvah for the sake of a mitzvah, le'michshav zilzal, that's not considered belittling Shabbos, klal, at all. Kevan shu soyed to this mitzvah, because right now you're involved with the meal, which is a mitzvah. That's not belittling Shabbos. Oh, imatam, or if the reason for the prohibition of eating a meal that you don't regularly eat, a very lavish, a big meal on Erev Shabbos, and mishum dali deizeh nachon l'sarach Shabbos, is because now through this you're not going to be able to properly prepare for Shabbos. Guess what? Yesh loymar, which means we're concerned that maybe you're going to be so preoccupied with the meal you're going to forget to prepare for Shabbos. Yesh loymar de besudas mitzvah lo yachmir bazeh. So you could say when it comes to a meal which is a mitzvah, they weren't stringent. They weren't stringent with this, to prohibit eating on Erev Shabbos. If the meal is a mitzvah, they weren't stringent. V'samchu, and they relied on the fact that mistama yachinah kol panim kaseh the harness l'kavod Shabbos. At least minimally, you will prepare fried fish in honor of Shabbos. Something small. In other words, in that way, that's when the Shulchan Aruch, that's when it's permissible to eat. You're still going to have some sort of appetite. It's just not going to be full-fledged appetite, full force. Masha ein king, conversely, im al yedeza, if through by eating right now on Erev Shabbos, yeah, now you're going to be eating, your eating is going to be balay lachilas gaso. You're not going to be stuffing yourself. Guess what? Deloy nechshava achila klal. It's not considered halachically eating at all. That's why I highlighted this part of the Ber Halacha. When you eat at all, when you stuff yourself, it's not halachically even considered eating. But he referenced the Ran in the beginning of Arvei Psachim, who goes into this. We already discussed that yesterday. Mistabra So it doesn't even count that you ate, even if you did eat. Mestaber de yesh loy limnoya melechol harbe kadesh lo yavel. So that's why you have to refrain from eating a lot in order not to come to this. In other words, you go to the bris, you go to the pigeon aben, but you have to now maintain how much you're going to eat. You're going to have to limit the amount that you eat.
Everybody has to know. No,
You have to know yourself.
you have to know
Depends on the person.
capacity is.
Exactly. Everyone's got different 100%. Then the Be'er Halacha concludes this section by saying, "Acher kach masasi b'ateres hakinim shadaiso gamkin diyazar melechol kol kach b'ofen shavoli de bittul sudas halayla." Afterwards, I found in the Teres Hakenim, he also held that a person should be careful from eating so much so in a way that this was going to cause you to now nullify your suda at night. In AKA that so that you don't get to the stage of achilas gasin, you're going to become to nullifying the suda. V'afshahu, and even though that Teres Hakenim is machmir, restringent upon himself, he doesn't allow you eating on Erev Shabbos with the meal that is a mitzvah, even if you're going to be eating to be satiated, in she'ein makor lazeh. There's no source for this. In other words, he's stringent and says, okay. I'm not sure exactly what that line means. He himself, that Teres Hakenim, is stringent and saying not to eat on Erev Shabbos with a meal that's a mitzvah, even if you're eating to be satiated. Maybe it means that you are going to now, I'm not sure what he means by that point. Maybe if he's going to ruin, I'm not sure what he means. That is no source. You don't need to be stringent. Maybe he's saying, if it's going to ruin possibly being satiated your next meal. I'm not sure exactly what it means. I'd have to look up that Teres Hakenim. Nevertheless, in a situation when you're going to eat and drink in a way that you're certainly going to come to nullifying the suda completely at night, this meal, by eating at night, achilas gasib, for sure you have to be careful with that. For sure. That's perhaps what the Be'er Halacha could mean. And then we're just going to conclude with this Vidah. Vidah, and you should know the following point. That which the Magen Avraham quotes the Bach, who says the mitzvah lahaskil koidim teisha shalos is a mitzvah to begin before 9 hours in the day. This is what happens if Purim falls out before Shabbos. It's a wonderment that he quoted this in the name of the Bach over here. That the Magen Avraham quoted this in the Bach. This is talking about when Purim falls on an Erev Shabbos, that you should make your Suda probably before Chatzos halachic midday. It's a wonderment that he quoted, that the Magen Avraham quoted the Bach. It's clear from the girl, that's why it's obvious. We can learn for our case over there that b'diavad, after the fact, if you didn't eat your Purim, your Suda meal that fell on Erev Shabbos before Chatzos, before halachic midday, yuchul la'asoy Suda's Purim afil min chamal. You could even do it from afterwards, as long as it's before 9 halachic hours, like the Ramah said, and also its time for that meal is on Erev Shabbos. That's another important insight which gets learned out from the sif that we're doing over here. Okay, so Mirza Hashem, tomorrow we will continue with this. Very insightful. Everyone should have a wonderful day.
Wait, we mentioned about when Shabbos is Motzi Yantif.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
We're gonna. So that's the same exact idea. If Shabbos falls
No,
out,
but that Suda has to be after. That Suda is preferable after Mincha.
which one? In which case?
When you have oh wait, no, but you don't have shalish. You don't have a
Which case?
No, I'm thinking about I actually think about when Motzi Shabbos is when Motzi Shabbos is a when Yantif is Motzi Shabbos. Sorry, that's something else.
When
But
Yom Tov
also
is Motzei Shabbos, what's the problem?
well, you're having shalish shudis.
So also, yeah, right. You have to be careful with child shoulders, not too close. That's right. That's right. 100%.
And but if you have Yantif Erev Shabbos, you don't have your Suda so late, I guess. That's what it comes to. But like, let's say Rosh Hashanah falls out Erev Shabbos.
So you have to be careful not to have anything too late.
Well, how careful can you be
If it's before 9 halachic hours, it's fine. You have to be careful. You want to save appetite for Shabbos. Same idea.
You gotta be careful with your daven that they finish on a certain time.
Yeah, if they finish 3 o'clock or something, yeah. Yeah, you have to be
Oh,
careful not to eat too much if it's that late. That's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, fine.
All
All right,
right.
very good.
Okay. Have a nice day, Kultiv.
Yeah.